Happy Sunday morning, everybody. Wow, that was actually a much more entertaining fight than I anticipated between Ryan Garcia and Devin HANEY. So Ryan completely dominated Devin to get, oddly, a majority decision. We'll talk about the scorecards later. But Ryan dropped Devin at least 3 times. There were a couple more times when Devin hit the canvas, but the ref ruled it a slip. And then in sort of odd dramatic fashion, Ryan was also deducted a point for hitting on the break. But there's no question that Ryan completely dominated Devin. So let's do a brief summary of how the fight went. So right off the bat in round 1, I think Ryan established his jab and also established his left hook, because he kind of wobbled Devin with the left hook, just clipping Devin's chin, and that knocked Devin's head back. So I think, gave Devin something to think about right off the bat. Now, to his credit, Devin did rally forward and arguably, well, for sure, take the next few rounds at the beginning of the fight. But from round 6 onwards, I think Ryan just picked up the pace and just poured it on. So he definitely dropped Devin in the 7th, and again, you could argue that maybe he dropped him more than once, but then was deducted a point for hitting on the break, and then he also dropped Devin in the 10th and the 11th. Dropped him pretty hard in the corners. All the time, every single one of these were effectively his patented left hook. Now once it was the right hand that landed last, but it was really the left hook that kind of set up Devin, and the right hand was sort of more or less just kind of pushing him to the ground, to the canvas. So let's take a look at how Ryan was able to have his left hook be so effective. Now we know that Ryan has a very fast and very powerful left hook, but the key thing here was he did set everything up by working off his jab. And then here's something that I think Ryan has improved on since his last few fights, was he did put the punches together and use combinations to get to that left hook. And so, credit to Derek James, because in addition to throwing more combinations, Ryan was also using slightly better footwork. Still not like, A+ level world champion Hall of Famer footwork, but better footwork than just going straight in and straight out, as he sort of has done in the past. And then the other thing is, in terms of the combinations, Ryan also worked both head and body. So, again, credit to Derek James and credit to Ryan for executing in the ring. But I feel that those factors are what really had his left hook catch Devin sort of by surprise, right? Now, what did Devin not do correctly? Well, unfortunately for him, I think he kind of gave it away in his media workouts. He just threw way too many single punches with lots of rest in between. If you think in musical terms, it's like one punch, quarter note, and then like 3 notes of rest, 3 quarter notes rest, another whole bar of rest, and then another note for his next punch. You simply can't just throw single punches against a fighter with speed like Ryan Garcia. Now, the other point, of course, is that, I was taught from day one, you should never ever throw a single jab, because you're going to get countered. So I'm not sure who's taken the true lead in Devin's technical training. His father certainly is the one working the corner in a fight, but I don't know if he's the one literally calling the shots in the gym. But Devin needs to break himself out of the habit of just throwing these single jabs, whether it's to the head or to the body. And Devin needs to start putting those punches together. He needs to develop a bigger variety of jabs and mix them up in sparring, so he can do that also in the fight. Now, the other thing that Bill Haney was calling for in the corner was for Devin to feint more. I think Bill was calling for that maybe even as early as right after the first round. But it seemed to me like that was something that Devin didn't really either practice enough and in the camp and in sparring leading up to this fight, because his feints were super simplistic. They were completely readable. All Devin would do would be sort of to dip his whole body down and try to kind of shift his shoulder a little bit. But I mean, these are not effective feints, especially because Devin just maintains the same tempo all the time. So if you keep the same tempo with your feints, they're completely readable. The whole point of feinting is you have to change up the tempo and the rhythm. And you have to change up the way you feint. You actually have to sort of throw a punch and then throw another punch, or throw the punch and then throw the feint and then throw the punch. But these are all changes that you gotta do during sparring. Otherwise, it's not gonna just happen during a fight because someone told you to do it. Second thing that I noticed Bill Haney calling for was for Devin to get under Ryan's left hook. Okay, so not rocket science, right? Because you already knew Ryan had a left hook. You should have been prepared for that. If you're gonna dip under or just duck under, well, you darn sure need to come back with something, or that's just a wasted movement. So your options are, if you're gonna duck under Ryan's left hook, throw a simultaneous left body shot while you're down there, and then roll out on the other side of Ryan's left arm, come back with a right hand to the head, something, or just roll under and come up back with a right, left, right to the head, but you've got to come back with something. So I did notice that Devin was successful in just dipping down and letting Ryan's hook go over him, but he didn't fire back with anything, and then Ryan would clip him on the next exchange. So again, I don't know what Devin Haney's and Bill Haney's game plan was, but it seems like for some odd reason they left these sort of holes in their repertoire or in their preparation for the fight. I mean, unless they had this and then unless that was there in place and then Devin just completely fell apart after the first round or the fourth round. I'm not sure. Only Devin could tell us what their game plan was and where things fell apart for him. But really, to Ryan's credit, he did show improvement from his last few fights in terms of footwork a little bit, and then putting the combinations together. Now, as somebody in the fight commentary pointed out, you can't train speed, so I mean, do we give Ryan credit for having that speed? Well, I was lucky enough to be able to meet Ryan in person and spend a little bit of time watching him train, and I did watch him work his left hook on that reflex bag that his dad, Henry Garcia, developed, called the Fierce Reflex Bag. So the thing with Ryan is he would really, really work his left hook on that bag, and super powerful left hook. In fact, Ryan broke that reflex bag not in the middle where the spring attaches to the pole. That's kind of where you think it would break, if it's going to break, right? Because that's where the point of most torque is, right at the end of the spring where it attaches to the pole that then goes into the stand. But Ryan broke the Fierce Reflex Bag at the base, where the bottom pole is like welded to a square floor plate that you've got to pretty much drill into your gym floor. So that was pretty unbelievable, that Ryan's left hook was that powerful, that metal welding failed right at that joint, right at the floor, not in the middle of the bag. A Fierce Reflex Bag pole. So that just showed me something, and I was literally sitting right there right next to the bag when it happened. And then I think I spoke to Ryan at the end of his training session, and he just said 2 words to me. He goes, "Perfect timing," and that's basically what it is. Yes, he's got the speed. Yes, he's got the power. But what really makes that punch effective is the timing, and Ryan is 100% aware of that. So the other thing we can bear in mind about Ryan and his dad is his dad, Henry Garcia, is a professional musician. And so I would bet that, Ryan has a certain level of musicality, and he understands timing, rhythm, tempo, these sort of attributes of music, and then he understands, exactly the timing of that reflex bag, which carries over to his timing of somebody's head movement, right? And being able to catch them right exactly on the chin. So here's what the deal is with that reflex bag, right? You hit it and it oscillates or vibrates or wobbles, whatever word you want to use. It goes back and forth. So imagine you're pushing a little child on a swing. When are you going to push the swing? When the child is at its sort of maximum height, at that pause moment, that's when you're going to push them. And then every time they go on the next swing, they'll go a little bit higher and a little bit higher. And we call that in physics, we call that resonance. So now transfer that same concept over to the fierce reflex bag. Ryan knows how to catch that bag at the peak moment when it's at the end of its path to get it to go back with maximum speed in the other direction. Okay, it's a lot harder to do that on a fierce reflex bag than a child swinging on a swing because, of course, the vibrations are happening much, much faster. And it's that soft skill that Ryan's able to transfer over to the ring and over to landing his left hook at exactly the right place at exactly the right time on his opponent. So it's not just random luck, and it's not simply speed, it's the timing and the precision that makes. So it's the timing and the precision of Ryan Garcia's left hook that makes it so effective. It's not merely the speed. So back to Devin HANEY. Just one other thing that Devin resorted to that just killed a lot of time and momentum in the fight was just grabbing and holding Ryan around the waist, which shows me that neither Devin nor Ryan know how to fight on the inside, and that's a big weakness that I think both fighters are going to need to address as they move forward, certainly if they want to maintain themselves at world championship level. At some point they're just going to absolutely have to start learning how to fight on the inside. So Devin, instead of fighting on the inside, just grabs around the waist. What does Ryan do? It's not a shoulder roll. I wish people would stop calling it a shoulder roll. What Ryan does is he takes that shell defense position with his arms and turns away from the fighter. Let's say the fighter's at 12 o'clock straight in front of him. He turns away all the way to 4 or 5 o'clock and bends over straight down, which is a really, really bad position to put oneself in at all times. And so we saw Devin kind of just whack him away on his left kidney when he turned away like that. And that's the problem with that, with doing that, with turning away like that, is you expose your left flank. But the bigger problem is that you're in no position to get to fire back a shot. A true shoulder roll is just rotating at the waist, and for an instant, because when you rotate like that, you're loading up your right hand to come straight back with a counter right, preferably a counter right left hook or something. You don't want to just fire back with one punch. You want to fire back with a couple punches, but by rotating at your waist away from a punch, the whole point is to load up potential energy for your counter shot. Okay, so that's sort of my one big criticism of both fighters for this fight is their inability to fight on the inside. Now that said, let's take a look at the scores, because in all fairness, I think the ref could have taken a point for holding, taken a point from Devin HANEY for holding. Instead, he decides to take a point from Ryan Garcia for hitting after the break. But in a sense, I think Ryan was retaliating for Devin constantly just grabbing him, holding. Okay, so let's backtrack and look at the officiating for this fight. Scorecards were from someone named Max DeLuca turned in a scorecard that was a draw, 112 to 112. That means he gave Ryan 5 rounds, and he gave Devin 7 rounds, but he deducted 1 point from Ryan for that Harvey Dock deducted, which left him with 112, and then of course Devin got dropped 3 times, so that left him with the 112. The other scorecard, I think, was 114, 111 or something like that, and so that means that judge gave Ryan 7 rounds, minus a 1 point for the deduction from the ref. And then the last score is the one that I would agree with, which is he gave Ryan 8 rounds, minus a 1 point deduction from the ref. So, I mean, regardless, I mean, the scorecards in this case were almost irrelevant. I mean, fortunately, the right person won, and it didn't go to, you know, a draw or a loss for Ryan. But I say they're almost irrelevant just because it was such a dominant performance. It's clear to anybody who watched it that Ryan dominated Devin HANEY. It was clear from the look on Devin's face at the end of the fight and his body language that he knew he lost that fight. Bill HANEY knew he lost that fight. You know, Bill went on, I think, IG Live Sunday morning to be all smiles and everything, but they were both just sour grapes after the fight, which shows me, you know, they're poor losers. Devin chose not to go to the press conference. He didn't have to go to the hospital. He got in his SUV and rolled off with his entourage. So there wasn't a medical reason for him not to attend the press conference. He just chose not to. And I think that's in poor taste when you're the champion and you lose. Whether you lose rightfully or wrongfully, in this case he lost rightfully, but no matter what, you're the champ. You lost, you know, come speak to the press, because, you know, the press was there for you all the way leading up to this fight, you know, and the fans were there. So, you know, say what you gotta say, be gracious in defeat. Bill HANEY, I also thought, was somewhat of a poor loser in that all he could say was, oh, you know, Ryan is a good fighter. I mean, Ryan's more than a good fighter. You know, you want to talk about your son being, you know, a pound for pound great, this and that, and Ryan beat your son. Well, if Ryan's just good, what does that make your son? It makes your son less than good. So what is that, fair? I mean, you tell me. In all honesty, you know, I don't know that the 3.5 pounds made that much of a differential, except that Ryan probably felt better in the ring. But I don't think it gave him a huge weight advantage, because I'm assuming Devin also rehydrated to probably like over 160. So I think they're both over 160 in the ring, since neither one had a rehydration clause at this point. That means Devin's welcome to rehydrate as much as he wants. So what's next for Devin HANEY and Ryan Garcia? Well, Bill HANEY says, oh yeah, we want the rematch, and Devin says, I'm still the champ. Now I'm a little bit confused with that, because I thought that if the champ loses, and Ryan came in overweight, so he can't win the belt, but I thought the belt is now declared vacant because the champion, Devin HANEY, lost the fight. So, I mean, you guys tell me, have they changed things? But regardless, the belts, as I had said prior to this fight, the belts are irrelevant when it comes to Ryan Garcia, because he already has kept such a huge audience. Whether he holds a belt or he doesn't hold the belt, that's irrelevant. He brings so many eyeballs to his pay-per-view and to the fight. It just doesn't matter if he has belts or not. So let's talk a little bit about how Ryan brought the eyeballs to the fight. So I guess he fooled a lot of the boxing media who thought he really was 100% sincere with all these odd posts he was making, whether it was of him drinking out of a wine bottle or a beer bottle. It's like, come on guys, this is called pranking or trolling or whatever you want to call it. And I know that's not something the older generation does, but we should know by now that this is something that all of the younger generation does, whether it's for their own personal social media or on more public social media. You know, it's a thing that's done. Look, the Nelk brothers got famous for their prank with telling Toronto cops that they had some coke in the trunk of their car, right? Ha ha ha. It wasn't cocaine. It was actually, as Canadians call it, pop. It was actually just Coca-Cola in the trunk of their car. So it's the same idea that Ryan's doing with this pretending to drink alcohol business. I suspect that Ryan got the fight negotiation versus Devin HANEY done fairly quickly by accepting a smaller purse and gambling on getting more money or a piece of the pay-per-view. And so that means Ryan's got to get out there and get tons of eyeballs to watch the fight. And as I said, Ryan doesn't care why you're watching the fight. He doesn't care if you're a true boxing fan. He doesn't care if you're casual who wants to see a train wreck because you think he's gonna step in the ring drunk or something. It just really doesn't matter to Ryan why you're watching. All he needs you to do is tune in and buy the pay-per-view. And so, I mean, maybe we'll hear some of the pay-per-view numbers when those figures get settled. But in any case, from this point forward, Ryan does call the shots because he beat Devin HANEY. Now, I personally do not want to see a rematch. I don't want to see HANEY Garcia number 8, if that's what you want to call it, or HANEY Garcia HANEY number 2 in terms of professional fights. This fight was just too dominant on Ryan's part for me to care to see the rematch. The second fact with it is that Ryan sort of hinted that he might want to move up to welter, and that, you know, even making the 143.5 was very difficult for him. So Oscar hinted at a catchweight, you know, maybe a 145-pound fight. But then Ryan just chimes in and says, hey, how about I move up to 154 and fight Fundora? Now, that's actually not a bad proposal on Ryan's part, because for sure that's Fundora's biggest payday. If he fights a Ryan Garcia, there's no way Fundora can make, you know, any more a bigger payday than by fighting Ryan Garcia and getting a piece of that pay-per-view. And I would assume that Sebastian knows that. So, you know, he has southpaw advantage, he has the height advantage, but Ryan has the eyeball advantage. So, that would be an interesting fight if it can be made. Now, before all the naysayers say that's just impossible, consider the fact that Ryan he's pretty tall for a junior welter or even a welter, because he's taller than Canelo. Now, he's certainly not as bulky upstairs or even in the legs as Canelo, but Ryan's only 25. You know, if he invests the time and the work in the gym with the weights and with his diet, he can certainly put on quality musculature to move up in weight if he wants to move up. So I tend to agree with Oscar De La Hoya in this case. Ryan's in the catbird seat in terms of calling for whatever fight he wants in the future. So what do you want to see next? Do you want to see Ryan Garcia fight Devin Haney in a rematch? Do you want to see Ryan Garcia fight Tank Davis again? Do you want to see Ryan try to take on Sebastian Fundora? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you very much for listening.